I'm Monica with Nucleic Verse. I use analogies, metaphors, and anthropomorphization in order to create poems and story. It's how I understand. It's how I see the unseen and ponder the unknown. Just as words are imperfect models of thought, so too are these words strung together as story. But imperfect as they are, we try. Holy, homogenous whole. Separation, the unsteady state. Eventualities loom. Barriers strain, artificial and transient. Community will dominate. Restriction is weak. Resistance is futile. Bubbles and capsules insulate and contain. Metaphorical and literal life's blood. Digest, grow, divide, respond. Deep division in every cardiac cell, calcium in temporary quarantine. The heart beats with release and sudden sliding, random but reliable. Entropy in the end is all there was. We exist small, between the push and pull. These borrowed barriers broken, we return to the holy homogeneous whole, resorb into the primordial before and forever after, until the next time. What does it mean to be alive? What is life? Compare something obviously alive to something obviously not in that category. Without waxing philosophical about vibrating subatomic particles, but focused on the very practical day-to-day business of being alive, life has generally been defined by 7 characteristics. The characteristics of life are as follows: organization, homeostasis, metabolism, growth, response, reproduction, adaptation. I love to think about how interdependent these features are. Without organization, you can't maintain homeostasis, which means you can't gather energy and dispose of waste. You can't grow, then you can't reproduce, and then you can't adapt. This is life's chore chart, if you will. This poem touches on organization, which, in my opinion, is the most critical element that underpins all the other characteristics. What is the in and what is the out? To grow, eat, respond, reproduce, adapt, none of those things would be possible without barriers and boundaries. But they are all temporary, destined to break down, tumble back into components. In order to be, life needs to separate itself from its surroundings. So there are barriers and membranes involved. You got to keep things separated. Boundaries in cells are made up of 2-ended molecules called phospholipids. One end likes oily spaces. The other hates it and prefers water. You have probably seen that oil and water don't mix. If you've ever done dishes after an oily meal, you've seen the water beading trying to escape the oil, and the oil scuttling across a watery surface. Let's look at a group of these phospholipid molecules to see what happens when they form a membrane. But first, let's add another piece to the puzzle. You've likely heard that the body is made up largely of water. It's the majority of what we are. Every cell that makes us up is a ball of watery soup. Let's throw in some phospholipids and see what happens. The lipid, or the oily tails, cling to each other to get away from the water as much as possible. But the phospho part of the phospholipid is totally cool hanging out in the water. We can start to see a structure taking place from these two preferences, hating or loving the water. It creates a nice two-layered barrier. Cells are surrounded with these membranes, and within them there are a whole bunch of membrane-bound packages organized similarly. The membrane is a dynamic, moving thing. Each molecule sliding around, surfing around its neighbors. This arrangement is not permanent. It's just a temporary configuration. Once energy is removed from a cell, the structure of the membrane breaks down, sometimes within a few minutes. The force of Brownian motion, randomness. All atoms have energy and movement as they jostle and twist and bump against one another. They force the organization into a big homogeneous whole. A beautiful example of how dependent we are on the separation and diffusion is the beating of our hearts. Each lub-dub is dependent on the movement of ions across temporary barriers. Calcium is sequestered in a particular place. It is not until the calcium is allowed out and released that a series of events lead to the squeezing of our heart's chambers, and the long-shaped heart cells slide into a shortened form. When the calcium is gathered back up into its holding chamber, the heart is unclenched and the blood rushes in for another round, another pulse, another day. Isn't that cool? There are two whole other processes that are super cool. The strength of the cardiac contraction, and then the pacing of the heartbeat, how fast or slow it goes. And those are two poems for two different days. Life is as delicate as a membrane and temporary as a barrier bound to break down or be replaced only to break down later. I hope this poem has illustrated the requirement and vigilant energy involved in organization that is required for life. Let's read the poem again. Holy, homogeneous whole. Separation, the unsteady state. Eventualities loom. Barriers strain, artificial and transient. Community will dominate. Restriction is weak. Resistance is futile. Bubbles and capsules insulate and contain. Metaphorical and literal life's blood. Digest, grow, divide, respond. Deep division in every cardiac cell. Calcium in temporary quarantine. The heart beats with release and sudden sliding. Random, but reliable. Entropy, in the end, is all there was. We exist small between the push and pull. These borrowed barriers broken, we return to the holy, homogeneous whole, resorb into the primordial before and forever after, until next time.